Arkansas. I am flanked today by the mayor of West Memphis and the Arkansas delegation of the General Assembly that represents Crittenden County. We have a couple more members on the way, but as y'all might have reported this week, there's a little traffic issue between here and West Memphis. I want to thank you all for being here. We want to talk. The I-40 bridge has caused all of this to be in the news, and it is certainly a significant impact, and the mayor and the representatives will talk about that, but it's a symptom of a bigger issue. It is bringing attention, the economic impact and the damage to a 42-year-old bridge is bringing attention to infrastructure, but in Arkansas, we've got a failure that goes past that. We have 1.5 million people in the state of Arkansas that are driving over what our Department of Transportation deems structurally deficient bridges every day. That's some 700 bridges in the state of Arkansas that have been deemed structurally deficient. There are another 2,000 bridges in Arkansas that are rated below average or worse as far as their structural soundness. What that means is we have school buses, trucks, neighbors, ambulances driving across substandard bridges every day in the state of Arkansas, and no real emphasis on infrastructure. We have a federal infrastructure plan that is a generational change like nothing I've ever seen, to invest in not only our urban areas but our rural areas and invest in infrastructure. And infrastructure from roads and bridges to the child care that will provide people to go to work and utilize this infrastructure, and all points in between. And what we have is a priority by our leaders in the Arkansas government on tax cuts for the wealthiest of us, instead of prioritizing safety for those Arkansans, for those school buses that drive up and down our roads and bridges every day. So as we talk about the I-40 bridge and the impact that we're seeing every day, what we also need to talk about is why Arkansas Senators Cotton and Bozeman, why our representative for this area, Rick Crawford, and why our governor haven't made a real push to help get this American Jobs Plan passed and this infrastructure investment in the state. I believe it is now my job to introduce the Honorable Mayor of West Memphis, Marco McClendon, to say a few words. Thank you all. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to say that the bridge closing has definitely had an impact on the citizens of West Memphis. Many of the citizens of West Memphis actually worked in Memphis, Tennessee, as well as many of the residents in Memphis may work over here as well. So you know when people's income is being affected, that weighs heavy on the individual. This bridge must get to going back as quick as possible, but not only just for our citizens, for even our local businesses. Downtown Memphis has mostly become a residential area, and a lot of those individuals come over to West Memphis, whether going to our Chick-fil-A or our Walmart or Kroger stores, and to spend money here, which helps the city towards our tax base, as well as those who come into this area for recreational purposes. It has definitely hurt the Southland Gambling Casino, which is our city's biggest employer. So you know when citizens, after this COVID, on the other side of this COVID pandemic, when citizens are having a hard time earning income or getting the full hours of work, that hurts. But not only that, the city's revenue that we generate from taxes from Southland hurt. So we have definitely felt the impact. Many of our residents have been worried about emergency medical attention. For the grace of God, we do have Baptist Crittenden, and we have worked out avenues so if we had a major trauma where helicopters will come to Baptist Crittenden and transport our citizens over to Memphis to any of the trauma centers. But definitely with just the peace of mind of knowing that the bridge is safe to travel is a major worry for me, because many people were worried about crossing the bridge. But now with this crack being here from my understanding close to 2 years, I wonder how would the ball drop when it comes down to making sure the people of this mishap area is secure. So I'm hoping that this Congress could work together to come up with a partisan bill to create an infrastructure plan for this area. Our 40 bridge being closed is true evidence and proof to the nation that infrastructure needs to be taken care of here in the city, in this city and many other cities around the country. So we're hoping that we can get this bridge going back quickly for economic purposes for the people on both sides, as well as West Memphis is a big trucker town. And when you have truckers that take other exits in other nearby cities and not coming to West Memphis, it hurts us due to the fact that someone is stopping in our truck stop buying food. Both of these bridges have had over 60,000 cars and trucks to travel on a daily basis. West Memphis is the home to America's Crossroad, which is I-40 and 955 with over 60,000 vehicles traveling. So you're looking saying that a bridge, the Hernando Solo Bridge, is cut normally will have over 40,000 vehicles a day crossing, being diverted over to the Haran Bridge right here. You can know the impact that it causes on our city, both West Memphis and Memphis. So definitely they need to look at something to make sure we can get the funding that we can shore up these bridges. But not only that, this may be the time to have that conversation of a third bridge coming to this area to relieve some of the traffic here. We're in the middle of the country. We're in great location. And I just think that the Washington, D.C. need to come to terms, whether you're Republican or Democrat, to make sure that we can have some type of way to get our infrastructure fixed all over this country. So as mayor, I hope to encourage my people to be a little patient. If you have to go to work, get up earlier. The ones that want to come over here and shop as well as enjoy some of the recreational activities that we have, to give yourself a little time to go over here. Be patient, be safe, and I got faith in our system that we will get these bridges back up and going smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the mayor said most of what I would want to say, but I think this just helps us recognize how important infrastructure is, not only for West Memphis and Memphis and people who cross the bridge daily for work and to get home for daycare and for ambulances and emergency services, but it's also West Memphis is the intersection of I-55 and I-40 for north, south, east, west interstate traffic. So it's a huge supply chain issue. And as Michael John pointed out, I just hope we will all call our congressmen and senators and encourage them for a change to work together to pass an infrastructure bill. They have talked about infrastructure for several years. Everybody recognizes it's a problem. And we're just very fortunate that this didn't turn into a disaster, that it was recognized before the bridge actually collapsed. But certainly we want to advocate for Congress to pass the infrastructure bill and help us rebuild and repair bridges all across the United States, but certainly at this intersection of the two interstates.
Well, we talk about aging infrastructure. Over our head here is a railroad bridge that was built in 1892. To our right is the Union Pacific, the Harahan Bridge that was built in 1916. Over my left shoulder is what was known as the Memphis, Arkansas Bridge, or all of us in the Mid-South call the Old Bridge, that was opened in 1949. And then in 1973, Interstate 40 Bridge was opened. We have got to invest in infrastructure in our country. This program that President Biden has is a major infrastructure program that has not, we have not invested in years. Somewhere along the line in the 80s, we decided that we weren't going to invest in our country, that tax cuts and other things were more important than passing on infrastructure to the next generation. Our mothers and daddies that were of the greatest generation, what they left us, an interstate system that our country had never had before. They believed in investing in our country, investing in highways, roads, bridges, water. And I'm sad to say, I'm worried about what we're going to leave the next generation. Without this piece of legislation that President Biden is proposing, I fear that we're going to miss our opportunity as those older baby boomers to leave our children with better infrastructure than what we enjoyed and what was passed along to us. In 2006, Tennessee Department of Transportation conducted an economic study of what would happen if the the rail bridges here at Memphis went down, if the two bridges went down and it was a catastrophe, if it was a terrorist act or if it was because of earthquakes, and the study showed, and mind you, these numbers are 15 years old, that the economic impact was over $21 million a week locally, $45 million a week regionally, and over $4.5 billion nationally. These bridges and railroads are of strategic importance in our country. And if there's anything, my gosh, that we need to put money in, it's things that are strategically important. And what the cost is of having to bypass and slow down because of the 40 bridge, yeah, we're going to fix this 40 bridge. It's going to happen. It's not going to happen as quick as we all hope it's going to happen. But we have got to think past the 40 bridge and a maintenance issue and think to the future about a third bridge. When I was mayor of West Memphis, I worked with Bruce Saltzman. He was an old bridge builder, and he was head of TDOT, and we worked together to try to work on a third bridge. It has been very slow in coming and very, quite honestly, if you look from 1949 when this bridge to my left opened to 1973, we're already behind opening a third bridge here. So we should use this example of what's happened as not an example of hey, we're going to fix this as quickly as possible. We need this as a warning alarm that we need to be looking to the future. And Tennessee, Arkansas, Memphis, East Arkansas need to come together to build a third bridge. I think that the Highway Department has a study that's probably 6 or 7 years old, an environmental, very preliminary environmental study for a third bridge, but that could be the great legacy out of what we're sharing here. We are so interconnected here, East Arkansas, Memphis, and Shelby County. You're seeing the effects of trucks that are coming through downtown Memphis because they're looking for ways to access roads that come through here. And that's our strength. Our logistics of where we lie is what makes this area so dynamic and make it an important part of the future. So I'll be happy to answer any questions later. Thank you for being here. Michael John, thank you for putting this together.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Representative, Mayor, and Senator. Thank you all. To reiterate, the infrastructure plan being put forward by the President addresses much more than just roads and bridges, and certainly more than an incident like we're seeing in the I-40 bridge. It is water lines in communities all on this side of the state that are older than both these bridges, frankly, and there hasn't been any money to repair them. It is, as I said, 1.5 million Arkansans every day, the bulk of them being in East Arkansas. Crittenden County alone has 25 bridges that have been deemed structurally deficient by the Arkansas Department of Transportation. Ladies and gentlemen, what that also means is there are a lot of bridges that have just been downgraded in their weight limits, so they don't have to call them structurally deficient. They just make it harder and harder for people that are transporting agricultural goods or shipments of deliveries to utilize those bridges. This is bigger than one bridge. It is an issue, as some of you may have seen in the last couple of days, a great smiling picture of Governor Lee of Tennessee and Governor Hutchinson in Arkansas, that they're going to work together to get this I-40 bridge fixed. Well, I come from, you don't get a pat on the back for doing the right thing. That's what they're supposed to do. It's the next step, as Senator Ingram, Mayor McClendon, and Representative Ferguson talked about. We have got to have an infrastructure plan if East Arkansas is going to survive and continue to be the strategic location that it has been for so long. With that, any of us are welcome to any questions you may have. Well, so I think what they're trying to say is grab the talking points that there is so much more in this plan than just roads and bridges, and it absolutely is, because infrastructure in 1929 may have been roads and bridges, and as you moved into the 50s and 60s building interstates, but today infrastructure is broadband and cellular technology, affordable access to it. Today infrastructure is, you've seen the trucking associations do studies about the inability of people to work during this pandemic because of the lack of childcare or pre-K access for young children. That is also infrastructure. But the roads and bridges are infrastructure as well. I think what you're hearing the governor say is it's not just about roads and bridges, and that keeps us from being supportive of it. Why they wouldn't be supportive of childcare that could get people to work faster, why they wouldn't be supportive of broadband internet and water lines. I promise you, in every community down Highway 64 all the way to the governor's mansion, there are still areas that have lead water lines in those communities. Why wouldn't he want those addressed along with the roads and bridges? That would be my response to that comment. Senator?
And I think probably what they alluded to, since this was maintenance funds, the money from the American Recovery Act can be used for things that the Highway Department would have been using the funds that they're now going to transfer in for maintenance on this project. So it's going to offset it will offset replenish funds. It won't bankrupt us. In other words, we'll be able to carry on with the other projects that we were doing. And this river that runs behind us, one of the great rivers of the world, our infrastructure in these rivers, we've got locks and dams that are failing all up and down this river. That is the key to this river traffic that runs, that spans this great nation. And so these are the type of projects that we need to put money in, because the money, you spend it this year, but it's good for 20 and 30 and 40 years. It's not just spent this year and the check's cashed and that's it.
And you critically say only about 5% goes to traditional infrastructure. Do you see there being a delay in an agreement? You guys coming to an agreement? Do you see provisions needing to be made?
So I think that there always has to be compromise. There should the first draft of anything is never the best draft. But from what we're seeing in Washington right now, one side's coming to the table with the plan, and one side is saying we're not going to pass anything proposed by the other side. That's not what we're sending anybody to Washington for. I would argue that the numbers of traditional, certain percentage into traditional, that everything changes. As Senator and I were talking, originally there were the wooden planks up here is how you got across the Mississippi River on this railroad bridge. So I would say that probably somebody in 1915 wondered why they weren't investing more in wooden planks than starting to talk about building concrete bridges and steel bridges across the river. So we have to understand that we're moving towards the future. Infrastructure is a lot more than just roads and highways. It's everything that allows the commerce to happen.
When you talk about the dozens of bridges that are structurally deficient and rated poor right here in Franklin County, what's your message to the people who live in Franklin County that are still driving on those bridges to get to work and run errands every single day?
So what I would say to them is, you got to vote. You've got to encourage your politicians. We're not always going to get along. We're going to disagree. Families sit down at Thanksgiving dinner and disagree more than they agree. But they agree on the important things, the safety of their family, the future of their kids. That's what our politicians have to do. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democratic issue. This is the future. So what I would say to the people of Crittenden County, St. Francis County, Lee County, Woodruff County, Craighead County, Poinsett County, where the bulk of the structurally deficient bridges are in Arkansas, is tell them we'll talk about the other stuff later. Right now, it's very important that we put our differences aside, quit getting nothing done and blaming it on the other guy, and make it safer for our kids, our ambulances, and for all of us that drive across them every day.
I have a question for both of you as well. Yesterday, Governor Lee and Governor Hutchinson also said that they thought that the system had done its job, that they weren't interested in dissecting potential failures or if there could be more dismissals in RDOT. They said that ultimately disaster was avoided and so the system did its job. Do you two agree with that, and what's your take on how this has gone, not only across the last week, but the failure to find the crack that's been there for 2 years?
I think if we define that the system worked by we averted disaster at the 11th hour is a bad model. I think if you talk to RDOT, I think they've been straight up and very straightforward. I want to commend Laurie Tudor and her staff. They've taken, they've stepped up and said it was our responsibility and we failed. They are instituting, as we speak, they're reviewing all their policies. I think one of the key things that was said by Director Tudor was that they were not going to stop at just firing an individual who was negligent in overseeing his job, but they were going to review the entire system for breakdowns as to where this happened. So I think that RDOT will come out better for this. I think it will cause these agencies all across our nation, they all talk to each other, and I think because of this, you're going to see a lot more reviews, a lot more intensive in nature that are going to be ongoing on bridges across the country because of what's happened here.
I just want to echo the sender to say that no, the beam didn't fall in the water and concrete go tumbling into the river, that the system worked. If that's our bar, we've got troubles. But to further his point, he's absolutely right. The Department of Transportation has owned their mistakes, owned their procedures on how they're redundant in inspections, and pledged to move forward better. But also part of their process that I talked about earlier is on these smaller bridges, the bridges that don't get talked about in the national news when something goes wrong. If they deem that it's structurally deficient or they deem that they don't have the money to fix something, they just reduce it from an 80,000-pound bridge to a 60,000-pound bridge and call it good, which means a truck with a Walmart logo on the side of it that's delivering something, a hopper bottom trailer that's delivering grain from an elevator to a farm to a feed mill can't cross that bridge anymore. So if that's the system that's working, we've got a bad system.
Can you repeat some of the bridges aside from the I-40 that have been brought to your attention that need to be repaired? And then do you know the cost of how much it would take to repair bridges within the West Memphis area?
So we can get you those numbers. I can tell you the one we're using right now is not rated top notch by the Arkansas Department of Transportation. It's safe for the load, it's at max capacity, but we also know the age of it, and either, as the mayor and the senator alluded to, we've got to build a third one to ease some pressure off of it, or some serious monies are going to need to be spent as well, especially now with the increased traffic load. A lot of the other bridges wouldn't be named recognizable bridges. They're simply overpasses, and in some parts of the county, rural bridges that the main part of this traffic we're seeing today doesn't go across, but your school buses do and your ambulances do, and they're just as important.
What kind of work can we expect since it's been echoed that a third bridge should be built by the two men that sat right behind you? What can we expect?
I think that's better for the senator or the mayor to answer that.
I think a good place to start would be with RDOT and TDOT. Review where we are on the environmental study on a proposed route. As you know, I mean, time gets away from us so quickly. This is probably 8 or 10 years ago. It was down to 2 potential routes, and a environmental impact study was done, preliminary study was done, and so that's sort of where it stands right now. We would need something of this magnitude. Let me give you an idea. In 1995, when we were working on the third bridge with a rail component, the cost of that bridge with rail was going to be about $225 million. Today, that same bridge is going to approach $2 billion. So a project that is of this magnitude, of this national strategic importance, it has to have federal dollars to make it work. So it's going to take an intensive lobbying effort on the part of all of our states involved with the federal government to advocate for pushing this project on and on. The third bridge is actually still, it's shown on our long-term strategic plan. In fact, I think right now it's shown to be built in 2025, which nobody expects that to happen. But it is still in the plans. It's to go to the Highway Department and begin to push this.
My last question for you, Mr. Ingram, was if the I-40 would have never closed down, would we even be having this conversation
That's a great question. You know, we know that this bridge is at max capacity. 40 is running at about, it was about 45,000 cars and vehicles a day, and it's about a 60 to 65,000. So it was about 60%, 65% capacity. No, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation today. And I think sometimes in government, until we're forced to face a crisis, we don't move as swiftly as we should, because somehow there's always other priorities that get ahead as far as where money should go. It takes a laser focus for something like we're witnessing here to bring the attention to everybody of the critical need.
Overall, what thoughts would you say the whole state could be looking at for failing to act as far as fixing bridges?
Well, I don't know about the whole state, and this but the numbers that I shared about what it would cost, that comes from a TDOT study in 2006 by Wilbur Smith and Associates, and it was done really after 9/11 because of 2001 and what had happened, and we were very aware of terrorists. We were very worried where things were vulnerable, and one of the national sites, strategic sites, was right here, this crossing, and what the impact it could have to our nation.
For anybody that can answer this, they've talked about the RDOT worker who's been dismissed and said that they're going to review all the bridges that he's inspected recently. Do you know of any bridges here locally that he inspected that are going to be re-inspected? And was the I-55 bridge one of those bridges?
I don't have that information from RDOT right now. I just know that they said there was about 15 bridges, if I remember right, that they were going to re-verify. You know, when they went back and looked at the drone from 19, they looked at 5 hours worth of drone film, and the crack showed up for a second and a half out of 5 hours. So I mean, they're looking for needles in haystacks, and the big thing is to get this fixed as quickly as possible, get it safe, get traffic moving, and then let's be a little introspective and make sure that everything that he was responsible for is sound and safe as it should be.
Any other questions? I want to thank Mayor McClendon, Representative Reginald Murdock from St. Francis and Lee County, whose county also has a number of the bridges that are structurally deficient in the state. Representative Deborah Ferguson from here in West Memphis, and Senator Ingram from here in West Memphis. Representative Milton Nix from Marion, also representing Crittenden County, and has a big chunk of those rural bridges that are structurally deficient. They are all available for any questions afterwards. Thank you all very much for being here today. Michael John Gray, Chairman, Democratic Party of Arkansas. Oh, Representative Murdock? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm sure that these very capable people behind you have talked about the situation that we're in, as you see, which also prevented me from getting here at a certain time, actually. But of course, in my district, which is over in Lee, St. Francis County and near Phillips County, we have a bridge over in Helena, obviously, that also is in need of attention, and we want to make sure that the federal delegation and all that is involved will pay attention, will take this opportunity to bring the resources to this area to make sure that it addresses everything. We hate that a situation like this brings this type of light, but in a way it's necessary, it's needed, and it's happened now. So we're hopeful that through this process that all of these bridges and infrastructure development that needs attention, it will happen through this process. So certainly we're affected over, again, in Lee, St. Francis County. As we come this way, specifically as the I-40 bridge, many of our people come from and to this area for their work. And it's really causing a problem. They have to go all the way through Mississippi now, many people to get around to Memphis in this area in order to get to work in a reasonable fashion. So again, it's really affecting the economy. I hope and pray that the attention now is being paid to it, that we can get this rectified and we can get it taken care of. But again, thank you again for being here. And if there's any questions, be glad to answer about the area that I come from. Yeah. Reginald Murdock. Reginald Murdock. State Representative, District 48, Reginald Murdock.
Thank you all very much.